Hello and welcome to day 2 of Adobe Live with Jessica. And today we're going to be digging deeper into bare essentials and bare necessities.
Yep.
But before we do that, hello everybody that's in the chat. Hey Tim, thanks for being our great moderator today. And if you are in the chat, tell us where you're from. Today we're in San Francisco. It's a little rainy. But that's kind of a good thing.
Yeah, we need the rain.
Yeah, we need the rain here, right? It gets a little dry sometimes. So if you're in the chat, tell us where you're coming in from. Would love to see some more people active in the chat today. As day 2 is going to be more of polishing your designs and getting more fidelity going. But before that, we do have a portfolio review today. So that's going to be a really cool thing for us to give some insight into how you think portfolios might look. And remember, this is just 2 designers with portfolios giving feedback, but there's always the feedback from you that you can go to the Behance pages once we share those. And then we have our chat and win. So make sure to log into your chat so that way if you wanted to win a cool prize, we'll have a fun question for you to answer and just kind of jump in there and so you can get a chance to win a really cool prize. Without further ado, hello everybody in the chat and welcome back, Jessica.
Yes. All right, so I'll just get started by giving a little intro about myself again for the people who did not see the first segment. So, hello, my name is Jessica Yang. I am currently a senior studying interaction design at the California College of the Arts. I am born and raised in the Bay Area, so I grew up a little bit like an hour from here, and then I go to school in San Francisco now. I come from an illustration background, so all throughout like growing up to high school, like I did a lot of fine arts and illustration, and I got into interaction design when I went to CCA. I actually did not know it existed at all. So that's why there's the question mark sections, like what is interaction design?
And we both went to California College of the Arts.
So that's how we know each other.
And I also didn't go in there as a designer. I went in as a photographer.
Yeah.
So things change once you're exposed to like a new program, which is what that is.
Exactly. And that's also another reason I really fell in love with interaction design. It's a really like interdisciplinary program, I believe. Like people come from all different places, like illustration and photography, and you find your niche. So
right, and there's so much like different perspective you bring from wherever you come from.
Definitely, yeah. So I interned at Hulu this summer, and I'm interning as an interaction design intern at PunchCut next semester. So it's been a great journey so far. Besides design, I really like drawing, cooking, baking, running. Like that's the things I do when I have the free time. So yeah.
Yeah, and if you have any questions about any of this stuff, like roles or anything that comes to mind about like having a career in UX or in product design or in interaction design, feel free to ask. Yeah. And Jessica would love to share her insights. If I have anything to share, I'll share it as well. But she has a great wealth of information about what it is to be an interaction designer and a product designer, working at companies like Hulu and now PunchCut, which is a really great agency out here in the Bay Area that does all kinds of things from accessibility to interactive installations and all this really cool stuff. So yeah, any questions, feel free to ask.
Yeah, let me know. Cool. All right, so I'm gonna go over the agenda we are covering today. So on day 1, I went over an overview of the project that we're working on called Bare Necessities. And then we talked about the web experience as well as finishing the mobile wireframes and then making some mobile components. Right. So today I'm going to be recapping what the project is very briefly, and then we'll be applying a design style to the mobile wireframes I've completed, and this will be drawing from the web prototype I'll show shortly. And then based off the stuff I apply, we'll be creating a style guide and then prototyping everything. So I'll link it up and then I'll show it on my phone. About how it would look like if it was a real product.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So going into my product again. So at a high level, Bare Necessities is a household supply subscription service. It's designed for those who share spaces. So you choose a plan according to your needs, and then you'll get shipped a custom refill box so you never run out of what you need. So the reason why I decided to create this service was really tackling this problem. So I found that a lot of people share spaces, especially like if you live in a city or like you're a college student, you can't really afford to live on your own yet. So you're often sharing spaces with roommates, guests, or like a spouse. And then while these communal spaces are really great for building connections and bonds, it can also really create conflict between residents. And then this just adds stress to the living situation. Right. So I was like, how do I make living together better?
How many roommates do you have?
I have 3. Yeah, so I'm
Wow.
going through
Yeah,
it,
so you're in it.
I'm in it. It's been a great time though. I love my roommates. So I also, to figure out like the space I was working in, I interviewed 5 people who shared spaces with people. And I asked them questions such as, what does home mean to you? What do you associate with your home? As well as, when does home no longer feel like home to you? And the biggest source of inspiration I got from here was that home really doesn't feel like home when there's conflicts or disagreements. So these are caused by things such as like living habit differences, lack of respect, delay in paying rent or amenities, and like visitors, as well as just like overall lifestyle differences. So I wanted to explore, how do you resolve these types of conflicts in ways that are both civil and beneficial to everyone involved?
Right.
Yeah. So honestly, one of my favorite parts of interaction design is just like throwing all your concepts out here. So I made I believe it's 24 concepts here, and each one was like 5 minutes. So you just set a 5-minute timer and you like generate an idea, and you like set another timer and you generate another. And this like really gets your like juices flowing, and you don't really think about what's like a good idea, what's bad. It's just about getting it out there.
Yeah, and it's like, I think a lot of times we tend to get stuck on like the first idea we have.
Yeah.
And this is like, I love this type of exercise because it just like forces you to think more conceptually and like mash ideas together that you wouldn't normally have.
Oh, definitely.
So yeah, this is, if you don't do it in drawings, you could do it in like a brain map, a mind map, right?
Brain map, yep.
Mind maps, brain maps are different. Mind maps work well, like anything to get these ideas out there to like disconnect you from your original idea. But sometimes that original idea is your best idea, and you kind of refine that based on these.
Yeah.
So
and
yeah,
honestly,
I love it.
yeah, some of my best ideas are like, I have an original like concept and I combine like 3 or 4 different ones, and it just like reinforces your original idea.
That's right.
Yeah. So based off that, I found that these concepts are really divided into like 2 different categories. So when it comes to conflict, to solve it, you can either like, one, prevent it from even happening in the first place. So it's like very preventative. And then there's also reactive, where the conflict has occurred already and then you try to solve this conflict. And I felt that for a lot of reactive solutions, solving conflicts is again very much like a personal, emotional thing between people. So I felt it was not really appropriate to be designing this sort of interaction. Ooh.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah, that's just Julian. Anyways, yeah. So I didn't want to be solving these sorts of conflicts. I wanted to like try to prevent them from actually happening, because that felt more appropriate to design.
Right.
So yeah, so we're trying to prevent things. So I did some competitive landscaping. So I looked into existing solutions for like tangible preventive problems, such as like chores or like telling someone to like not eat your eggs. And I felt the problem with these was when I talked to a lot of people about chore charts, because I'm sure people in this chat who share spaces, know that unless you constantly use a chore chart, it's like pretty much useless and it's like very easy to abandon. And for the Post-it notes, it's very much like, it doesn't solve anything. You're just, being petty. So I didn't want to go that route. And then on the tech side, there's like Venmo, Home Slice, and Art Groceries. We all know and love Venmo. It's like where you can split payments. Home Slice is an app that keeps track of all your shared supplies, and Art Groceries is keeping track of your shared food. So I felt that these were like, they're very helpful apps, but again, it's like, unless you put active user input, it doesn't actually work. Like if you don't continuously update like what tasks you have in Home Slice or what groceries you have in Our Groceries, it's kind of not working anymore. So I wanted to create kind of like a self-sustaining service that still functioned without active user input, but still allowed like a degree of personalization.
Great.
Yeah, so this was actually my very first sketch for Bare Necessities, which kind of calls out like all the steps you want. So you want to choose, you go through like a brief survey, you choose what you need, you split the payment, it gets shipped to you, and then you get a refill box. So like that's the power of like sketching. You kind of like dump your concept out, and sometimes like, it like says the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah. So going on, I made some user stories around this, and as I mentioned in the last stream, I'm a huge fan of user stories just because I think it really puts your product or service in context, and then you know how to design these interactions and what platforms to design these on. So it follows the story of Jane, who is a college student living in San Francisco. She shares an apartment with 3 people, and she's frustrated that her roommates never change or replace the supplies. So she vents to a friend about this problem, and a friend recommends her Bare Necessities. And then she goes online, checks it out. She's really pleased that they offer household supplies, and she shows the service to her roommates and they talk about it together. And again, going back to my comment about how you can kind of see what interactions you want to build into your app, I decided to make like the conversation with roommates in person, not over the app. Like I didn't want to build like a chat function in. And therefore that informs the fact that I wanted to make a web application for the onboarding process because it's a large enough screen that you can share it with multiple people. Like you don't want to do it like on a mobile phone and have like 4 people crowding around it. So yeah, after going through the survey, they get recommended a plan for them. They get to select when they want to have their refills sent to them, and then the supplies show up in no time. And then thanks to bare necessities, Jane and her roommates always have the supplies when they need them.
Yeah. And there's a question about what software you did this in.
Oh, yeah.
Most likely you did this by hand.
Mm-hmm.
And then how do you normally like import your files, your images?
So I actually use Adobe Scan, which is a mobile application. You just take a picture of whatever like paper sketch you have, and then it automatically cleans it up. It makes like all the whites white, all the blacks black, and then it's just really clean. And generally, when I'm like writing these user stories, I'm like scrawling my handwriting on the bottom. So I like to go in, like clean that up, and then retype.
It gives you sometimes it gives you vector, does it? The Adobe
it gives
Draw?
you a PDF.
It gives you a PDF, but everything's kind of cleaned up for you.
Yes.
And then you just go in there and type your text in like XD.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great question because sometimes it's like there's a lot of ways to do this, and you didn't draw this on a tablet using. No,
it's just Sharpie on paper.
Yeah, Sharpie translated to digital.
Yes, exactly. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to walk through the web application real quick. So this kind of encompasses the onboarding process to the checkout process. So here would be the home page. You scroll through it, and then it kind of shows you like what's working, and then what boxes you have, etc. And then once you click in, you start the onboarding process, which you go through a brief survey. So you can click start, and then it'll tell you to choose where you live. So you can click like apartment, for example. And then going on.
Oh, this is the one
this is the one that Julian's working on.
Okay. Yeah, just a kind of, I don't know. It's linked to the wrong one. Yeah. There you go.
There we go. That's the right one. Okay.
So I was kind of jumping the gun and playing with some.
Yeah. Huh.
Did I mess them up?
I think this is the right one. Oh, the after component state's the right one. Okay. That makes sense. Sorry about that. All right. So you get started. Huh. Maybe it is the wrong one.
Yeah. I think something with the sharing. We were both editing.
Yeah, we were both editing the same one.
All my work got deleted. So it's after go to the selecting your box.
Selecting box. Which
one? This screen.
Okay. Awesome. Cool. All right, slight blip, but so the onboarding process would be selecting where you live as well as how many people you live with. And then here would be, this one doesn't work either. Well, here would be selecting what type of supplies you need. So you can select cleaning, bathroom, or kitchen. And then you can select your budget, as well as how frequently you want shipments. And then you would get sent a recommended plan based off your answers. And then after that, you would go through the payment process. And I think one thing that's very interesting that I built in as well down here is you can choose to split the order as a group payment. So you can add whoever you want to be in your group. And then when you place order, it will, it will automatically.
If you go to yours above, it's wired still.
Yeah. Is it wired still?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, but it'll automatically split it among all the roommates, and once they confirm everything, that's when the order is placed. Yeah. So, what we'll be working on today is the mobile version of this.
So you're going to translate this version to mobile?
Yes.
And you already have...
I already have some wireframes. Yes.
Let's take a look at those.
Yeah.
Did we show those in detail?
We didn't show those in detail yet, but essentially the task flow I was going through, we already briefly talked about the onboarding process up here. And then there are the order section where you can see like all your personal versus group orders, social where you can see your groups and your group members, and you can browse the products, and then you can add it to your cart. So I kind of already built out these before the stream, so I'm going to be focusing on the product section. And yesterday, where we left off on was here. So we had already built out how the browsing page would look when you can filter it by the 4 like high-level categories like cleaning, bathroom, kitchen, laundry, and you can also filter it by price and if it's eco-conscious or not. And then once you click into a product, you get taken to the product page where you can see like a photo of it, which I'll add. You can choose the different scents, a description, as well as selecting the quantity. And then what I'll be experimenting with today is I want to see if selecting quantity would be best scrolled or would it be best as like a plus minus button.
Right.
Yeah, so we'll build that out. And then another thing you can do is you can choose if you want this product to be a one-time order versus adding it to your plan. And you can also choose to tag a specific roommate because what if you want like a really nice hand soap but you don't want to share it with everyone?
Right.
And not everyone wants to pay for it. So you can choose which
I really like
roommate.
that feature. That's such a good feature. Yeah.
Nice.
Because that's like the part of like the pain point from your research. And touching back on E. Yurden's question about how did those user stories come to be, as far as like how did you get that information?
Right. So generally my user stories are all based off my interviews or research.
Right.
So they're kind of like a combined story like from like the 5 or 6 different people I talked to. So I just like pulled out like their pain points, their highlights, and then how I would imagine them using my service, and I like string that together.
Yeah, and there's many ways to synthesize your research, which in itself is like kind of hard to explain and kind of boring.
Yeah.
So you have to like find your best way to synthesize research into a way to communicate what you learned. And so there's like, I think I love storyboards and being able to use user stories, but then there's like experience maps or like different ways to walk people through a journey that's a little bit more kind of structured.
Yes.
But I do feel like stories are the most resonating form of communication, and that's why I think yours does a great job at doing that. And the research is also there. And just as a reminder, in 12 minutes, we have our chat and win. So if you're not logged in to your Behance page, go ahead and do that so that way you can take part and win a really cool prize. And then if you're just joining us, we're here with Jessica Yang, who is a
Hello.
senior interaction designer at CCA, but also has experience working at Hulu as an intern, and then has a upcoming internship at PunchCut, which is an agency here in SF. And she's walking us through her translating a desktop version, web version of a service that is translating to mobile. So we're almost at a point where we can start making the other ones look the other part of the wires.
Jazzy,
Yeah.
And to your question about Hana, where did I find these images and did I design the icons myself? It's like a combination. A lot of the icons are found off Noun Project, which is a really, really great resource. There's like so many icons in it. It's great. And some of the smaller ones, I just make them myself because they're really quick, like the vector back button. It's 2 lines. And then for the images, they're a combination between like stock photos, like Adobe Stock has a great selection. And then sometimes I find like Photoshop mockups and I like compile them together. So really like there's a lot of different resources out there where you can find things and you can tweak them too to fit your needs.
You like I think in Behance you can actually search for like mockups and you can find a lot of cool mockups where you can just kind of place your images on them. And as far as using like a service like Noun Project, like my only apprehension is like making sure you select a pack that has like line weights that are similar, right? Yeah. Because that's when you start having like conflicting line weights and styles of your icons, that's when things kind of look a little broken.
Yeah.
And if you start that in your wireframe process, then you don't have to worry about it during your actual like visual design portion of it.
A hacky trick I know, which is not exactly good design practice, but if you have an icon that's just the fill, but the border isn't thick enough, just create a border around the fill. And you can adjust that border.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and if you do that across all of them, then they'll all be uniform.
Yeah.
But also, if you're looking into doing them yourself, like, by all means, like they're really great to have your own like icons built.
Yes.
Every project kind of requires different ones, but some of them are very similar. Like you know, there's only so many people icons that you can make, and so many like home icons that you can make. So you know, sometimes taking from the people that do it best is fine.
Yeah. And I really do enjoy icon design. Actually, I do it quite a lot because I think it really adds like a sense of character. Your designs?
Yeah, totally. No, and we're kind of in a point too where people like are getting more creative with the ways that they present icons. Like you can you can do whatever you want these days. It just depends on like your brand and where you want your brand to like speak to an audience. And you're kind of, I like you're doing like these outlined, kind of more like thicker lines, right? And that's something that you like, is more like kind of thick, like 3-point borders.
Yeah, it really depends on the project,
Right,
honestly. But
yeah.
I think when it's come to like more like minimal design, I think it really makes the icon stand out.
Right.
Because you have like white and like a really thin line, then it kind of gets lost.
Yeah, and so we have 9 more minutes to our chat and win, and make sure to also if you have been contributing to the Creative Challenge or plan on, we won't be we're reviewing your Creative Challenge submissions today, but doesn't mean you shouldn't submit them as soon as you can. Next XD live Adobe Live Show will be reviewing your designs for that Creative Challenge, but we're also going to start a new Creative Challenge next week on Monday with Sam, who has a really fun new way to kind of push you to a new direction with your design. So stay tuned for that, or come back for that for sure. And if you have created some of your submissions for Creative Challenge, please continue submitting them. We're seeing a bunch of them come in that are the Apple Watch, using the Apple Watch dimensions for a countdown, which is really cool. And the one today that Andrea Hawk was doing are multiple interactions. So a recipe on a tablet, so you can use a lot of the component states to have one artboard do a lot of different things. So keep on making those designs and submitting them and getting great feedback from me and other people that are also in the channel. And if you are interested in learning more, always go to letsxd.com for a really great series of tutorials by Howard Pinsky. And I'll actually show you his latest UI kit that he put in there with some component states and how they inspired some of the design for this homepage that I was kind of co-editing with Jessica on. So a lot of cool stuff there. So this is letsxd.com. If you haven't been there, please go there. And then I have been kind of playing with Jessica's documents. So if she has some flibs, it was my fault. I apologize. I was taking her design before component states and kind of building on top of them some new triggers. So let's take a look at some of the things that I just did in a few minutes. And this is like a really simple, giving you a highlight on your tabs. So if your links, like you can just do a link, a little line that animates. And the way I did that, just to show you, is not very hard. You just create a line, and you have 2 states. You have the default state where the line is 1 width, and then you on the hover state, you actually just extend the line width and then take the opacity to 100. And then that gives you a really just simple way to like see an animation. Obviously the hover state on a button's not too elaborate or crazy. And then this is a fun one that we have, is just like taking a search icon and turning it into like a little box for you to search in. And the way to do that is also very simple. You have an element, and this was something that I noticed that Jessica did have like a PNG that was one image, so I just recreated a search. And it's just 2 shapes, right? And so like this shape turns into a rectangle, and this shape will turn into the cursor. So when we see it in a back-to-back kind of expanded state, the search glass is the housing rectangle, and the cursor is that little handle. So yeah, and then the text is something that just like populates when it gets expanded. So those are simple tools that you can reverse engineer some of Howard Pinsky's work, and which is why he made them. So you can make some little cool, compelling animations. And then this is another one, like how does a transition look when you go from this page to the next page? And so you have this little, lift, or this slight shift in the product coming up, and that is that's really easy. That's just having you go to this onboarding one first, and then having it use a time trigger with no delay to the next one underneath it where it is in full view. And then you have your kind of bouncing up effect. And then we would love some feedback from anybody here that is interested in giving feedback on what you prefer. We have hover states. So I like this one because it's really simplistic, and I think this is the one you intended.
Yes.
Using just like the blue. And then you also have like a drop shadow, which also works depending on the patterns. But if you include drop shadow in one of your one part of yours, you kind of have to use drop shadows more, right? You can't just use it in one situation. So when you consider drop shadow, like definitely like think about like your whole design, because it might be something that you want to like reuse some of those like kind of skeuomorphic patterns throughout. And then the other one is like a slight pop in size, like so it's like a hover with border with the slight shadow, a full color takeover, or just like a slight pop of size. Would like to know what you think.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a few options. We always like to iterate, right? And we'll make a decision on that before the end of the show. And then so when you select one, it does turn blue, and then you have the continue button also pop out. And that is something that is a chained to your tap animation with states. So you just do a state that also then reveals this blue button.
Definitely.
Yeah, drop shadows aren't the best. That's not an accessibility centered animation. Sure, I mean for desktops, like they can be compelling, but I agree. I think for this one, the ones that work best are the full color, and the reason why, and this is something that Jess, I want your opinion on.
What's up?
Is when I was kind of playing with it, this was my initial idea, was to use this one.
Right.
But then your selected state is also that one, right? So that's okay though, right?
Hovering over your house again? I think in that case it'd be nice if it was like just the border.
Just the
so
border.
It's like, when you're hovering
Okay.
over, it's like, okay, it's kind of selected. And when
Gotcha.
you click it, it's like fully selected.
Okay, cool. So I have an idea for that. So I was also then playing with this idea of what a border would look like, and in these numbers. So like when you select how many people live in your house, and this one, the idea was like, what if I can get like that border to kind of animate on a path? And I haven't quite done that because I was interrupting with your presentation. my bad.
No, you're totally good.
So yeah, using hover states, and if your default state is also mapped, then what I do is just kind of manipulate that path. Because it's the whole thing about these auto animations are, you kind of have to have the same layers and layer names, or else it just breaks, right? So we want to make sure to keep this path the same as it is in the hover state version. Make sure I'm designing, right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just take this path and break it.
Are you gonna make it like wrap around?
Yeah, I'm gonna see if it does, if it works, right?
Okay.
You know how that is.
Yeah.
I've always this is the first time trying this, so maybe I shouldn't be trying stuff live, but
I mean,
whatever.
that's how design is.
Yeah, right. That's true.
You just try it, you see if it works. If it doesn't, you try something else.
That's right. So let's try it out. Let's see how it works. So if I have my default state, no, it didn't do what I thought it would.
What?
I thought the vector would wrap around the whole thing.
Like a line draw.
Yeah, it looks like it's quite complex. So instead of it's not.
It's kind of interesting.
It is interesting. It's not my intention.
Right.
But we'll fix that. But the other thing is like, how does it look like when it selects? Like, I feel like I saw a really cool thing in Howard Pinsky's tutorial, and it's like that. I think that's pretty cool, where it's like liquid filling.
Yeah, that's nice.
The square, right? And that's just like a simple mask click animation using state still, and it does it on both. On like when you're deselecting and selecting. And And so we are in the chat giveaway. Sorry, I didn't get you the time. So I have a question. If you were an essential in your house, what would you be and why? So what would you be, whether you're a bar of soap, a toothbrush, what would you be and why? Go ahead and enter your chats now. That way you could get a chance to win. And I'm gonna keep it a surprise until you do, because it's a really cool giveaway today. It's something that like was gone before, but now it's back. So yeah, go ahead and chat and get in there and tell us what would you be as a bare essential, in a bare necessity in your house. I know what I'd do. Welcome back, and I would be I think I still would be that little like tray in your sink that collects everything.
Wow, that's a very specific. Huh. I don't know what I'd be. I'd probably be like some sort of cooking appliance, just because I like cooking. Maybe like a spatula. I don't know.
A spatula,
like multi-purpose.
Definitely.
Yes.
Very essential.
Yeah, exactly.
I need to buy metal spatulas.
Interesting.
I have like plastic ones, and I feel like they're always getting melted.
I'm a fan of wood. Like wood is nice.
That's
because it's like antibacterial too.
That's true.
Yeah.
I need that's what I probably need to do instead.
Yeah, definitely.
Because the metal scratches your pants.
Yeah. And then plastic just melts.
Plastic melts. And
running water.
Jasmine Ramirez, congratulations. You won 100 3x3 die cut stickers from Sticker Mule, and if you haven't like checked out Sticker Mule, by all means, please do. They have all kinds of really cool stickers, not just companies that you love, but also really fun other stickers that you can grab. But don't fret, because if you didn't win, you also get a really sweet deal. Yep. Go to stickermule.com/Adobe Live 19, and you get 10 die-cut stickers for $1, which is actually a really, really, really good deal. And by all means, like, we need to fill up our things, but I'm very selective with the stickers.
Me too. I like hoard a lot of stickers, and I use like 10% of them.
I feel like they go on water bottles, but not really laptops.
Yeah, I actually have some like on the surface of my laptop right here, just not on the back.
And congratulations, Jasmine. So you are the winner of the stickers.
Yes.
Okay. And as a reminder, if you haven't submitted your designs for the Creative Challenge, please do so, and we'll get those reviewed for you on Monday. Depending on what projects you submit, we're looking for some more of those. The countdown would be really cool to see, but also the newest Creative Challenge, which is, reminding myself, the multiple interactions, and those will be reviewed for you next week. And also make sure to join next week for the Creative Challenge, because Sam Anderson is going to walk you through a really, really cool.
It's going to be exciting.
It's a choose your own adventure kind of thing, and that's all I'll say. It's going to be really, really awesome. So the other thing to keep in mind is that we have our portfolio review happening in about 50 minutes, and that's going to be there was a question like, how do you get your portfolio review? You just kind of keep posting on Behance, and that's basically really what you got to do. Take part in creative challenges and interact with us on the live stream. Any way that you can interact and engage with us is a great way for you to get selected for a portfolio review. Also, the quality of your portfolio does really matter. So just keep maintaining it and keep updating it. As far as like staying with trends, that's not really 100% necessary. I think just go with whatever you feel is great. I
agree.
Right? Like
the best design happens when you love it.
Yeah, and trends, they go and they come. Right?
Yeah.
They're not forever.
Definitely.
Like people aren't using gradients as much as they used to.
Huh. That's true, huh? Like all the like app icons used to be like gradiated, and now it's just
it's not. Yeah. So like I think still using some of those trends is great.
Definitely.
But come up with I think a lot of it is like the concept, like how rich is the concept you make, and as a UX designer, I think a lot of it is more than just like the visual and like the snazzy interactions. It's more of like, does it make sense?
Exactly.
Like, can your user navigate? Yeah, is there intention there?
Yes. All right. So while you were showing the prototype, I went in and where'd it go? There we go. I went in and added some images. So this is kind of how it would look like if it was hi-fi. So now we have the soap, and I made it so the color changes ever so slightly. So if you want jasmine, it's green. If you want lavender, it's purple. Yeah. And then I also experimented with some of the quantity of adding and subtracting. So let me know if you guys like the minus and plus better, or if we like the scroll better. Just let me know. Yes. Because I think it could be equally interesting. This one is nice because it like stays within the page, but this one's kind of nice because it has so much like room.
Yeah, and if you're in the chat logged in, give us some feedback on this. These are UX decisions that we would love to collaborate on. I personally like the look of the plus and minus. As an interaction, it's like it is in the right spot.
Yes.
If I were to think of like using that, it's in a good spot. I don't know.
We'll see. Let us know.
Yeah.
This would go.
And for like an e-commerce pattern, like neither of them are wrong. Like you can use either or.
Okay,
so
we got one vote for plus minus stepper. All right.
Yeah, plus minus stepper.
All right, so I manually added this image in, but I think there's a really cool plugin that you told me about.
Yeah.
Let's see if it works. So it's a Google Sheets plugin that you can add to XD. And what I did earlier is I populated the spreadsheet with just the name of all my products as well as the images I wanted to add. And you can map the category names to the names within your program. So I have like, in bestselling, there's like product name best, and therefore on Google Sheets, there's a list of like product names within this category. So let's try to apply them. You can go here and then you can add your spreadsheet link, and fingers crossed, let's go.
Yeah. And also to correct myself on earlier when I said portfolio reviews submitting to Behance, as this is populating, you actually use the link above the chat, and that looked like magic. So use the link above the chat for the portfolio review to submit your portfolio to be reviewed. We've already started reviewing. We already have the two selected, I believe. They just hit my inbox. But go ahead and use that link anyways, and then you can do it for next time. That'd be great. And so like, what she did right here was using the Google Sheets plugin, which is, I feel like it might not be like the best way to work by yourself, but it is a great thing to show, like if you're working with a team, and you have like someone else that's maybe not designing, but more like collecting content, and they're plugging into a sheet, and all you got to do is just get the URL.
Definitely.
And you just set the parameters. You do have to be a little bit more diligent about your file names.
Yes.
Right? Like naming files needs to be pretty accurate to like what your Google Sheets look like. Do you mind showing what your sheet looks like?
Oh, yeah,
do you
of
have
course.
that open?
Yeah, I do have it open. So it's just a pretty like standard column format.
Yeah.
And if you compare it to what I have here, so let's see, we're looking in best selling, right? And if you click in, well, it used to say product name best here, right? And then this is mapped to here. So within product name best, I have hand soap, toilet paper, and then paper towels.
Yeah.
And as you see on the left here, can I scroll in? It was populated accordingly.
Right.
And then this is set up for everything. And same thing goes for any image you have. So for example, this one was called image best. So within best selling, I have a list of images right here that populate.
Right. And this is still just a really good way to keep track of your copy. And if you update your copy, you actually don't need to update your design. You just go back to your Google Sheet.
Yes.
And this is a plugin, by the way. So so change the top one, hand soap.
Hand soap
to body
bar soap.
bar soap.
I don't know.
Bar soap.
Okay.
And then if you go back to your plugins,
reload.
And then you refresh.
Content. Oh, wait, hold on. Gotta select
we gotta select the artboard.
I gotta select it first.
Yeah, we gotta select. Artboards have to be selected as long as they are there.
Google Sheets, refresh content.
Did it do bar soap?
No, it's still in hand soap.
Where's bar soap? Oh, it might take some time. Look, it's still working. Oh, there's a lot of data in that one.
Yeah, there's a lot of data.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah.
But
It's bugging out.
it usually does work pretty well. It populated them. That's
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that was great. Let's make this back to hand sew. Maybe it'll take a time, like a while to load.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine. All right, so it's still like a little wonky, so I'm gonna go in and resize and like center a lot of these images, because we want stuff on your product page to look pretty uniform.
Yeah. So if you're in the chat, go ahead and submit your portfolios. We have 50 minutes until we're gonna review them, so you have plenty of time. Let's see, and I want to show. I guess I could show plugins too.
Oh,
Let's see here.
no, I selected the wrong color. Yeah, it's really nice too, because when you plug it in, it like fits the the shape you made. So it's like super nice.
Yeah, that's. And then you have your like components, and you can kind of like change the styles across, which is really great. So that blue color is like
it's like the background color.
The background color?
Yeah, exactly. I'm just gonna go in and do that for everything.
And then removing those
borders.
Yeah, sometimes borders
are tricky.
They're tricky.
They're tricky.
Yeah, and so are drop shadows.
I agree.
I think those are one of those like trends that got a little overused.
I think also like using the right type of drop shadow is interesting. Like I actually am not a huge fan of just pure black, like lowered opacity drop shadows. I always like to do like a little bit of like blue or like purple, because it gives it a little bit more life to it.
And there is a question. There's a couple questions here.
Oh wait, no, it's too small.
So Pedro asks, can the Google Sheets update periodically, or is it a one-time upload, non-refreshing? So typically, the Google Sheets plugin is a push to refresh, so it does refresh. As long as you change the data in the sheet, you will be able to then change that information by refreshing it with your plugin. And so it just kind of pulls in the information when you initiate, and if you have images that swap it out, they'll also swap out. Our internet sometimes gets a little like crazy because we have so many things we're connected to, so that could be one of the culprits why it didn't do it here on the demo, but it does work, and I've seen it happen on the live stream before. So that's a great question though, and I would really suggest it if you have a lot of like product cards like this, that like, typing in all of these individual all this data is just time consuming. So in the sake of workflow and saving yourself time, use something like the Google Sheets plugin if you're willing to like learn something new. And there is a tutorial on letsxd.com for it, and so you can take a look at that. And then another question is from Munzer. I have a question. Can a graphic designer become a web developer at the same time and a UI UX designer?
Wow.
So currently a graphic designer becoming a web developer at the same time as a UI UX designer.
Ooh. So I think web development and UI UX are like, they're pretty close to each other, and I think they're very good skills to learn. And honestly, if you know both, you're like unstoppable. But
what do they call those? Unicorns, right?
Unicorns, exactly. For me, like when I hear web developer, I think more like coding, like HTML, CSS, when you're like actually building the website. Whereas if you're a UI UX designer, you're more like thinking of the interactions behind it, and like what I'm doing here, like making the visual design of it. So honestly, like if you can do both, like if you can create the thing and also like create the thing, like make the thing, that you're like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But it is two different skill sets. So
you totally can do it.
You can totally do it.
It's just like, it's hard to find a company that is trying to find like everyone wants unicorns, but like when you are a specialist in like everything, then you kind of become general at everything.
Exactly.
So like I would say like stick to learning something a lot more specific, like UX, because it is a really, really deep, rich field that there's just tons of information out there for it. Like what you studied 4 years, intensive interaction design principles and UX design principles, and sometimes it feels like I don't know what I'm doing, because every problem is different. And oh, look at that! You got a little
I'm doing a promo card.
With some snow.
Yeah, if you guys remember, it's the one. Let's accept the changes. It's the one back on the homepage, right here. So I just added some snow on, and I think we're gonna go and find some like snowflake icons and maybe like jazz it up a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's also, there's a lot of good, like, I think that when you bring the topic of coding up, there's just a lot of opinions and perspectives that I value, because like Wendy, that's a really great point. Like, depending on what language you learn is also gonna take you so far. So if it is just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you're essentially a front-end developer.
Yeah.
And that's great, because you're highly needed. As a web developer, like, learning how to do that is the basics. But if you want to learn a little bit more, like how to manipulate data and work with like AI, like that's really new. And for that, you want to learn like Python. Working anything with data Python is the best language for that. So there's tons of different languages that are special for certain things. So in Nakoma, your agency, you have design and code, and I would think that like a lot of the agencies out there would have like teams that kind of do one or the other. If you have like a team that everyone owns their own projects, like full product designers and developers, like that's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, to be able to have that is like really, really great.
Yeah.
Personally, like I think it's valuable as a designer to know
Yes.
what does developers expect out of your work. So like you need to be able to speak to a little bit of the technology and the code. But to be a UX designer, you don't need to know how to code, right?
But definitely having like a knowledge of it, like know what a margin is or like what padding is, and, like, these components. Because I think also if you're designing for development, like this like sort of language is very helpful. Like you need to ultimately translate what you're designing for developers. So if they speak your language and you speak their language, then it makes the process of working together a lot better.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that that is really, really like I think we all know is like the more we're able to speak that language, you can definitely have that conversation more effective. And then when you get into a place where you're working with a developer, you're going to have more intermediates also coaching you along the way, like your project manager and other people that are part of it. So if you have any other questions like that related to like what it's like to have to design and code, I personally don't feel that you need to know how to code, but you at least need to know some of the principles.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, Tim, I'm with you. I'm a no-stack developer too. You know, you have to know the boundaries though of like the technology and what's possible.
Definitely.
Because that's another thing that happens with UX designers. Sometimes you end up like designing these like really complicated interactions that maybe a team can't build, you know? So you have to think about some of the limitations of the developer you're working with and the time that you have, you know?
Yeah, I agree. At CCA though, we do have some electronics coding classes. So like where you learn like Arduino and processing. And then that's also like another form of interaction design actually, like when you're doing physical objects.
Right.
And a lot of this has to do with like sensors, like when someone waves their hand, like the screen changes. And I think that's also another form that is very interesting to look into.
Right.
Yeah, that's like a whole different thing from web development.
Yeah, like different ways of interacting with the world. And Sergio had a question. So this is kind of going back to basics here is of what XD is. So not familiar with XD. It's first time watching the stream. Thanks for watching. Like, you're the I'm the first he's seen, and you're the first guest he's seen. That's really cool.
That's awesome.
Great. Thanks for being here. So to answer your question, how does this work translate to the web and to mobile devices and like what are we doing? Like just mocking up visuals?
Yes, we are.
Which is a great question. A lot of times, yes, what this is like a way to visualize maybe some research that has been done to be able to have a product that people can actually then play with and get feedback on. But I do think that it doesn't need to stop there. And if we hop over to my screen, I can show you something. It's a feature of XD that happens when you're working in an environment that has like a place where you can have something built, where you're not building it yourself per se. And if you are, then it still gives you more stuff to work with. So if I take Jess's page here, your plans, right? And I have all these layers that I can do is mark them for development. So right here, this there's a little area on your XD. It's called Mark for Export. That's really important. And when you're trying to develop, you can use it in your advantage. So if I have this area right here, this little section is essentially like a component. What I could do is when I'm ready to export it, so I can export, or I just mark for export. So I click this little arrow here, mark for export. And then, so just follow me on this real quickly. When you're in the share area, this is where a lot of really cool stuff happens. Because you're able to then have more options when you share. And I think you're the owner of this. So maybe I might not be able to, but let's try.
Let's try it.
Let's see.
I feel like that's honestly most of UX. It's just like, let's try and let's see what happens. And you learn from what happens.
I accidentally closed the document.
Ooh.
Let me reopen my document. I might need to have it done on your screen if I can't.
Yeah, just let me know.
Because it might be a permissions thing. Because this is, I am working off of Jess's document, and she is the owner. So a lot of times the permissions are quite different. So we have share. Yeah. Anyone who decides this link can access. Prototype. Where is the prototype?
Okay.
Yeah. I can't do it. So you're able to mark it for export with the view setting. So instead of design review, you're able to mark for export.
Oh, okay.
Can you try it on yours actually?
What do you want me to do?
You're still designing the screen. I just want to show like a quick how to send something out to development. So what you do is like get that button, right? And you say mark for export.
Oh, okay.
And then go to share.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah. And then you're able to, right here.
Oh, that's cool. Design review.
Yeah, and select it. And so there's another one that's called development. So if you're sharing for development, and then what you're able to do is click the link, the Adobe, this link right here. So when you send this link out to a developer, what you're able to do is going to that screen. Go to that one with the button.
Go through all my
Or actually,
screens.
you have bottom development. Wait, actually, go back to your XD.
XD?
Yeah. And, oh, what is it there?
Download assets.
Oh yeah, so all the assets are there. So you have all the assets on the right-hand panel that you can get and update. Oh, that's right, update the link. So every time you make any sort of change like that, you do have to update your link. And then what happens there is that this link that gets sent has all that information in it.
Definitely.
So the developer then can go to this link and actually pull down all your assets.
Oh, that's really
Have
cool.
you seen that?
I think I've seen it before, yeah.
Yeah, and it's what's really cool about it is if you have like a web page completely designed, it has like all the spacings and all the CSS stylings in your shared development. So it's on the show we don't always get to that point to like share for development, but it is a really powerful tool that allows you to share development with your developers. And so you can have like CSS snippets.
Yeah.
And CSS is
like plug that in.
is styling,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. And you can use stuff like Dreamweaver for it. Thanks, Tim. But this is built into XD as a feature to give developers the actual assets that you designed, so that they can implement them.
That's awesome.
And it does take some time.
Yeah,
But,
there we go.
so if we go to the link, it should now have more information that we were looking for. So on the below that chat bubble,
Oh,
see
here
that?
we go. Oh, that's awesome.
So you have all of your components, your character styles, your components, they're all there. And so I feel like that is like a really great feature to have for teams.
Definitely.
To like make sure you're on the same page with your assets, your colors, your style types. So it takes you basically your whole your assets panel and dumps it into
that's awesome.
development. So just to kind of back away from XD just being a tool to mock up, it actually does have more power to then translate the developer handoff. So yeah, and then I think in the future there's going to be a lot more features that allow you to design to code, and there are some plugins that try to do it, but it's kind of strange at the moment. But yeah, it is a essentially right now a mock-up tool, but just so much more power because it communicates so much more than just ideas. Because it like your user flow, like this whole idea is now like has a mental model, which is if you're like trying to make this and make it real, you need to have like some sort of proof of concept to test.
And it's like really great for user testing as well because you can just have someone click through the prototype in real time. And honestly, if you put this on a phone, you give it to a user, they're not gonna know. They'll just click through it, and it's a great way to get feedback.
Yeah, and Sergio, again, if you are doing both the developing and designing, XD could be that solution for you to like design all your assets easily. And then as far as like the development part, it can be a way for you to prepare your assets for development. It just depends on your skill level and your ability to read all that information. But you can use XD as a way to ship your project to a developer to like collaborate together, because it has everything that they would need, all the assets, all the styling and all that stuff, as long as you mark your stuff appropriately.
Definitely.
So it can do more than just mockup. But yeah, great questions. Any more questions? Please fire away.
Let us know.
Not sure when XD is going to get a dark theme.
Ooh, that'd be fun though. That'd be really fun.
Maybe you can mock one up. Right? Like I think that's part of the cool thing about being using XD to design is you could do anything you want. Like there's kits for XD for you to design XD that is shared by the XD team. So if you look for that on Behance, you'll find that, and you can mock up your own what if XD was in dark mode version. I think that would be really cool. As far as when it's going to happen, I'm not cool enough to know that information. I don't know. I think a good person to ask would be Howard Pinsky next time he's on. He's got all the information. So yeah, that's. I think the questions, if you have any more, we would love to dive into them. So keep firing away.
Yeah,
how are you looking?
It's looking good. Didn't remember the background on this one, but let's just have it blend in. Because
Is it doesn't have a? Is it not a PNG?
I saved it as a PNG, but I think I pressed export background. Yeah, happens. Anyways, so we have this. I'm gonna actually duplicate this again, and I think what's really cool about like making components is if you want this selected, you can just go in.
Yeah.
And then, oh wait, no, I deleted that. Yeah. So if you go in and this is selected, that's the default state. That's selected, which I think is pretty sick. Yeah.
And there's a question about like saving preferences. I think that's something that will be a lot more robust later on. Like XD still, and I think what you're talking about is like shortcuts and stuff like that. Being able to like change shortcuts. I haven't, to be honest, I haven't looked into that. I think it is possible to change shortcuts, but beyond that, I would love to know what you're thinking about. Like, what do you mean, like configurable preferences? Like being able to like change things around like you can in Photoshop. I don't think so.
Oh, I just opened Photoshop. Sorry.
Yeah, well, Photoshop, you can change things around a lot and have different different settings. So yeah, I don't know about that, but I'm not privy to like that internal information. What I do know is that XD does follow progressive disclosure or tries to, and progressive disclosure is a concept. And actually, if we hop over to my screen, I could show you a really good resource for UX designers to look at. And so progressive disclosure is a form of navigation that basically discloses stuff that you need to see when you need to see it. It's a way for your experiences to be more compelling, to allow the user not to be overwhelmed by your information that you're showing them. So you kind of show them stuff as you need to. And a great example of that was in Jess's prototype of how you don't have the continue button until you actually make a selection. So an idea like that is a concept that is progressive disclosure. But if you look at this website, it's the NN Group, nngroup.com. So it's Nielsen Norman. There's just tons of information on different articles on interaction design and UX principles. So if you could see like 10 usability heuristics on user experience design, user interface design. There's so much information on this page alone that you could probably learn how to be a designer, UX designer. It's a little abstract because there's like it's non-visual, you don't see pictures, but this is like the raw information of design, human factors, and all that kind of stuff. Do you kind of like, I don't know, for me, I don't always nerd out on this kind of information. It's kind of dense.
I think it's pretty cool, honestly.
Right.
But it's like, it is hard to process. It's like one of those things that if you like do it and you're like, oh, this totally makes sense. But when you're reading it, you're like, huh.
Right, and I do want to show really quickly because I have you is
There we go. I took out the
Oh, you got
background. Yeah, I got it.
is this kit that Howard Pinsky provided on States. And if you haven't checked this out, I really recommend doing so. And also as a reminder, 28 minutes for the portfolio review. So if you have anything that you want to get looked at, by all means submit it. So these are like really cool, just like basics of state interactions and what you can do with XD. And so like this is just like a simple toggle, right? Like, but this is all in one artboard, right? And then now you can do like click states or different filter options for switchers on states. You could do a drop down now, and that's gonna like you can have the arrow animate, and you can have elements pop out and pop down. So this is like a basic one, but he did some really cool, more compelling like hover interactions, like add to cart that reveals information like that, or expanded folders. Like it's just like really easy to do these. Like it's 2 states. Just like,
Oh, that's awesome.
like and then like yeah, you can have like the information on each of your charts, which is really just simple way to do it, and like that's really great. So those are a couple. iOS states are different, right? We don't have hover, so we have more just like click interactions. But taking a circle or a square and turning it into a circle is not hard, right? We all can do that. These are like more specific to iOS, right? What do we have? This one's I think just a really cool one. So if you haven't gotten this kit, please get it. This is how I did some of the interactions on your design.
Oh, that's awesome.
Is I modified it to black in the background. It was originally gray, but you can change the background to whatever color you want, change the fill to whatever you want. And I think like this is one to kind of like dive in on like how did he do this? Just to kind of look at it, reverse engineering them is kind of fun. Because initially like it was gray, I changed it. So let's look at the layers, because that's when you know what is actually controlling this. So it's the heart that could be just, and it doesn't matter what color it is because it's just a mask. And then this is the liquid. So this little stuff here, all right? This little glob, that's the before. And then you have the heart. So I could change this back to gray. I can take that to gray. All right, and now we see like before and after, and then
Ooh, look at
it's really
that.
cool. And then like this little pop, it's really cool. The star fill. But yeah, it's just a really like easy way to make your like you know you had this one.
So
you
that's
could just
sick.
you could just like copy it and
Definitely,
take it
yeah.
over to your design. And some really, this is like I got his idea of like a search, like how you use search. Like these are really sweet. So go ahead and letsxd.com and find a link for this kit. It's really great. It's in the it looks like it's in the chat. Thank you, Tim. So yeah, tons of really cool animated states. There are other plugins that I could talk about really quickly. One of them is a nifty tool called Web Export. And this is something that I think is just like insane that it exists. But it's really cool. So if I go to like a web page like adobe.com, let's log out of this. And so this is like a way for you to like look at what's inspiring out there and great design. So you could like just take this. You have to get a plugin, the plugin, and let's see, where is it? Let's see, it is Design Exporter. Oh yeah, this one. So I extract the design. Let's try again. So this one, design copied. So I have this little plugin. Design is copied. I go back to my XD document, and I design importer, and then I paste all that information, and then it actually gives me that whole web page, and like all of its elements. It's not perfect, but it's like if you wanted to like get some quick structure, it's just a really cool plugin. I think that's kind of got some cool stuff to it. Use it or not. Another one that I like to use is a site called a plugin called Mimic, and so like if I type in adobe.com here. And what it does is this plugin specifically, it crawls the web page, whatever URL you're using, and it'll give you. Oh, that one doesn't work. Exceeded time. Let's check out another web page. Let's do one that's a little more simple. Usually for like complex web pages that have like just a lot of patterns,
It just like bugs out.
it bugs out.
Gotcha.
Oh wait, what's your web URL?
JessicaYang.me.
Let's see if it works here.
Let's try it.
So what it does is it basically builds like a little design system for you. And that's the Mimic plugin. There's tons of really cool plugins, and I'll give a quick highlight on the plugin marketplace because it's grown since Max, and so your artboards with extractor colors for names and mockup are ready. Let's check them out. So if we look at this,
whoa, I got all my information.
yeah, so it pulls.
That's awesome.
It pulls the fonts that are used. It pulls the colors that are the primary colors that have been used, and it also pulls images that have been used. Now, like not all of them are perfect. Some of them are like it makes them a little smaller at times, depending on the size that you have uploaded in your site.
Definitely.
But then look, now we have your logo there.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But yeah, this is called Mimic, and Mimic is it's a free plugin for you to use, and it extracts all the like essential web elements of like a site that you enjoy. So I would like urge you to play around with it at least. It might not be something you actually employ, but maybe give you some ideas on what's possible. So that I showed you 2 plugins. One of them was Mimic, and the other one was called Design Importer. And that's a free tool as well. And that one's it's a combo. It's a plugin for XD and also a Chrome extension. Yeah, and so that's how you bring in other designs. So yeah, let's go ahead and hop. Enough of my boring stuff. Let's hop over to the exciting stuff on Jess's screen.
Yeah. So what I've been doing is building out what the page would look like if it's been filtered. So if you have everything on this page deselected, it's like everything you have on the product, and then when you click into cleaning, it filters by cleaning.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna build it to be one page.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Cool. Then let's make it short. Though I should probably grab some of these elements in first, though. Okay, that's not a spray, but it's fine. It's a product. Cool. So that just kind of shows keeping in mind when you're designing things to make things reactive to context. So I think that's really useful to keep in mind when making things, especially if you're doing filter states. Like when you click on a filter, what information will populate it, as well as like being conscious of what your filters are actually called. I think that can be very helpful. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
So we have that. So that would be a long scrolling page. You click into cleaning, and it would take you to anything cleaning related. Okay, awesome. Okay. And toggling off. Let's see if that works actually. Let's try connecting that, and then clicking on that would toggle it off. All right, let's try that real quick. So we have all that, and then
What did it? What's it? Tab transition. Destination.
Destination. No, should be right.
Should be right.
Let's try again. There we go. Ooh,
Boom.
so it automatically filters. Yeah, if you click off. Ooh, there we go.
So that by doing this, you're able to then filter through what you have
Exactly.
available for that.
Yeah.
That's great.
And then you click into that, it's your product. Cool. All right. So I think the general vote was for this type of minus and plus.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, yes. All right. So let's actually grab this whole component over here. Goodbye for now. Love you best. All right. And then I have this state right here. Yes, there you go.
Yeah, and if you're just joining us or have recently joined us and are like not sure who you're sitting with, I'm Julian, I'm your host.
I'm Jessica.
And we're here with Jessica, who is walking us through a mobile translation of the design of the checkout process for her service that she is creating called Bare Necessities. And we've already shown the web interface that was designed with kind of like an onboarding experience. And now she's applying that same design, the visual design, to the wireframes that she created yesterday.
Right.
So looks like we're almost at that point where like wiring it up
Yeah.
and being able to maybe see it on a mobile device.
Yeah, definitely.
Sweet. And we have 17 minutes for our portfolio submission. So if you have any, if you want your work looked at, by all means, please submit your portfolios. Behance portfolios and so we'll look at those together in front of everybody and be able to talk about what we love, what can be explored, and just kind of give our feedback as designers. I'm still in that place where I'm always trying to make a great portfolio. I always go between this like, should it have everything that I've done, or should it just like kind of flirt with some of these like ideas and like have all that stuff ready later? I've been erring lately in the area of just have everything on there.
I agree. I completely agree.
But this kind of inspired me to think of like, what if I put like a filter on my website?
Oh, that'd be cool.
For like, what if like, what if you go to my website and like, are you a recruiter? If you're a recruiter, then maybe you want to see this.
Right.
If you're an actual designer and want information, view more details.
Interesting.
Or what if you can flip the presentation from like chronological to like another version, like flip it to like because like a lot of times following it chronologically doesn't really put the product forward.
Definitely.
Right? So maybe you could switch it from like chronological to like most valuable, like as far as like you put your best design forward at the top, because a lot of times that's what is recommended is when you create a case study or any case study or product or project overview is, I think, in my opinion, what I've seen most successful is when you put your most effective product or project on, or piece of the project on top. Right?
It's like that product you like flex with.
You have to, yeah. Like it's the most, you put the most work into that part and highlight that thing first. And whether it's like the best screen. But yeah, there's that. We'll get into that. I can't wait. It's gonna be really cool.
Yes. Yeah, I generally when I'm making portfolios, I like to put like a range of things. So I always have like screen-based stuff and research stuff as well as like physical stuff. So I think it just like really shows who you are as a designer.
I do still struggle myself on like how to present research work.
Oh yeah.
Without being like too dry.
Yeah, that's a pain.
Because that if you have struggled with research, or presenting your research work, like by all means share some of your secrets on how do you actually make it compelling. Because sometimes it can get a little dry when you're talking about all your, either it's quantitative or qualitative, those kind of can get a little dry.
Yeah. I tend to like to talk about like what I got from it rather than what I did. So like I won't really go through like, oh, I did 10 interviews about this and this and this. I'd be like, okay, I interviewed 10 people. This is what I learned from them.
Yeah,
and I think that's like really where you should focus on.
You put the synthesis, right?
Exactly. It's the bulk. Okay. So I was also doing this earlier.
Oh man.
Yeah. Let's see. Shipping fast or local shipping? What are we feeling? Let's do local shipping.
That's an interesting, Sergio had an interesting idea of like putting like passcodes on certain like projects, and so like you give business cards depending to people who you want to see certain projects.
Oh yeah. Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, it's almost like you can just like give them different versions of your portfolio. Which
I can see that.
Yeah, right?
Business cards are really cool. Like I actually really like collecting them. They're like Pokemon trading cards because I feel like each person's business card really has their personality on it.
Yeah, I do. I agree. And as a little nudge, you can design your business cards in XD.
Yes.
I'm really bad at my business cards.
Oh man, dude, I have a story. So. Last year, I think CC had a career fair.
Career
and they
fairs
were
are
like,
great.
bring business cards. And of course, like, I procrastinated it, so I didn't have time to order online. So I decided to make it by hand.
Handmade business cards.
Yeah, and it was like fine. Like I got a file, I like went to our like digital media printing lab, and I like printed everything. And then I was cutting like all 30 by hand, and I finished, and I realized I didn't put my email.
Oh,
and
no.
I was like, oh geez. So yeah, I had to. I think I like just woke up really early the next day, and I like printed on copy paper, and I like sandwiched like a thicker paper in between. It like did the trick. But I was like rationing them out, like depending on which ones were like cut the best. So I was like giving to like people.
To more high end people.
Yeah, just ordered. Like,
well, it worked. It worked. And Ayla, that's a really good suggestion. Is always like providing visuals, like graphs.
Yeah.
And anything that can kind of tell the story of research,
definitely.
right? Totally.
Yeah. And I think going back to your point about keeping people interested is I think storytelling is also great. It's like when you interview, I think the best thing you can get when you're interviewing someone is to have them tell you a story.
Yeah.
Because then you can go through that and like really pick out like certain behaviors or insights. And I think that's also pretty valuable when you're presenting on your portfolio. So
Yeah. And like showing what the insights were from that specific person and how that led to what it was that you decided to create. And so right now, what are you up to now?
I was gonna make a style guide. I'm just gonna pull the components out from what I have here, and I'm gonna put them together.
Sweet.
Yeah. So let's see. This is my main typography style, and this one's called Domus. So let's make this one called primary font.
Okay.
And then call this one Domus, because that's what it is. And that I'm mainly using for the like H1, H2, H3, and I'm also using this one called SF Compact Display for the
Paragraph.
The copy, yeah.
Copy.
Just because I feel like I usually like using like more like fun font for like the headers, and then using a more like readable standard font for the body.
Yeah, that's. I feel like that's the best practice too. Is like you don't want to use like a script font.
Yeah.
With your in your paragraph.
Yeah.
Just like those are like basics 101.
Right.
Like legibility of your font. And you can try to like go to like 12. What's your minimum? 10?
I think 10 for like the copy.
10 for
or
copy?
Not the copy,
For the
the
paragraph?
caption. I do at least 12 for
Or at least
copy.
12 for copy?
Yeah.
Yeah, because old eyes sometimes don't
exactly.
really cooperate.
Let's see, we have this one as our H1.
I feel like there should be a plugin that allows you to export your assets panel into a style guide.
Oh, that'd be really cool.
Right? Like something that is like well styled in itself. that can kind of do all this legwork for you.
Oh, that'd be really nice.
Let's make that happen.
Yeah. It could be like totally like a template for it, right?
Right, just make
Yeah.
a template and it just like extracts all that
Exactly.
information.
Okay, so let's see. We have that one as first one, and then actually I'm going to go back and reference what I have in my other wireframes because these use more of the style. So let's see. If we're looking at our orders page, we have that one, 30 is extra bold, and then this is our H2.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost semi-bold. Yeah, most of the time when I'm like deciding what boldness, I just go through all of them. I'm like, this one looks about the best.
Like right now, like I noticed, you're doing like an inventory
Yeah, exactly.
of what you what typefaces you've used. And yeah, so we have about 9 minutes for our portfolio review. So if you have submissions, please post them so we can take a look at that and see what we got. I'm just gonna verify that I have the winners soon. Let's see.
Okay, let's see. And then our H3.
And at what point do you normally do something like this in your process?
I usually do it more towards the end when
Okay.
I have the style pretty much built out. I think it's like great if you're sharing styles with people, just because they can know like what you're using and how to keep it consistent.
Right.
Yeah.
And there is a really cool feature that XD has built in, which is if you have Adobe fonts and you like maybe found some really cool Adobe font in the Creative Cloud library that you can access. If you share a file to someone that or collaborate with someone that doesn't have that font, once they accept your file, they automatically get that font.
Ooh, that's so helpful.
So just as a tip, but if you are using a font that is outside of Adobe fonts, then you would have to then like send that file, that font file to that person. Just a little bit of one more step if you work outside of the Adobe ecosystem, but a lot of times that's necessary. But if you aren't and you use the Adobe ecosystem, then you're covered, which is really like just kind of takes the pressure off of you. That way you don't need to send fonts,
Yeah.
because that's like the worst when you look at a design when it got like into a prototype mode where you can't change it. It's like, that's not the font that we decided on. It's like, oh, well, you never sent it to me.
Definitely. And it says like font not available. And you're like,
Yeah, it's never fun.
Definitely. Okay. So I'm gonna grab some of the icons now. I believe I can just take them from here.
So yeah, keep an eye on submitting those portfolios, because I'm not notified until the time expires. So once that ticker's done, then I'll get a notification on who we're going to review.
Oh,
so you have up until the wire to submit your portfolios. So yeah, go ahead and get those in. Yeah, and Tim, that's a good question. I think a lot of times the style guide is for us.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you do, when you ship your stuff to people, you definitely get like what your components are, and in a very packaged up way with that share for development feature. I do like it for my own sanity to like visualize what I have.
Oh yeah.
Right? It's like an inventory checklist and making sure I don't have you ever heard this term called design debt?
No, what is that?
So this is something that I recently learned, and it's when you work with a team that has a design system, and for whatever reason that design system isn't transparent enough, and people end up creating patterns that are similar but not necessarily part of the design system.
Interesting.
So like they're like, oh, I know this pattern exists, but like I don't really know how to use it, so they use it their own way.
Oh.
That it's not bad, right? Like we still need to not be confined, but if you are creating a pattern outside of your design system, you're essentially adding to design debt for the org, which means you are, potentially creating more clutter for developers.
Right.
and I think that's like what we try to avoid with design systems, is to like create it so they're flexible, but they have clear rules for you to use them. And that's where I think like being able to have a style guide like this to kind of like, okay, this is what we were using, and we should stick to these conventions,
Right.
Even though they are in the system. I don't know, that's just something, we've talked about that before. Like, do you leave your work in the assets panel or do you expose them, right?
Yeah, I think honestly I agree with you. Like this is more like for myself personally. Just like I know I have like a record of what I'm doing. And it's like it's really helpful, yeah.
And if you then plan on publishing a case study, it also makes it easier for you to just like export something styled to Behance.
And to the point, I also think style guides kind of show like your thinking as well. It's like, why did you choose to brand your thing this way? And I think really like if you put all the components together, you really see if they work together or not. Because sometimes if they're too scattered around your design, it's like they look good in theory and they look good apart, but together do they look cohesive?
Right.
Yeah.
And 4 minutes again for your portfolio submission deadline. Yeah, I'm really loving the simplicity of your design.
Thank you.
And how you can like really use this metaphor and keep pushing it of being like, what are the bare necessities? Like, what are the bare necessities of a interface?
Definitely.
Because I think I always, whenever I include any like lines that are like separators, it's like, that's just a decoration, right?
Yeah.
Like, are lines between things necessary all the time? And like, do you need to put every card? Do you need to add a border to every card?
It depends on your background color.
It does, right?
It really does.
But if you're using like this all white theme, then you can get away with it.
Yeah, exactly. There's no reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. We have pills. Let's see what else we got. Icons, and then I think this would be interesting to put in. I think it's a component itself.
Yeah, that's a big component.
Yeah.
It's probably like your most robust component.
Yeah, honestly. It's the most built out. All right. And I did put a little bit of a drop shadow there just because it is on a white background.
Right. Separation.
And I think like putting a border would just be like kind of removing it from the page, which I don't really want.
Right.
Yeah. What do you call these things?
Which ones?
This component. Would this just be like a add to box component?
Sure.
Maybe? Yeah, let's do it.
For now. Add quantity to box.
Let's try that. It's a good one.
And then as far as like when you design for mobile, do you initially just kind of design for the device that you have, which is like in this case an iPhone? So you can kind of test it on your screen?
Yeah, generally that's what I do. But I think there's like a big merit to be in the design for like systems like outside of iOS, for example.
Right.
Like actually what I was tasked to during an internship at Hulu, like my mentor was like, you're gonna learn how to design for Android because not many people do that. So I was like, I just got a little Samsung phone for the duration of my internship and I was like tasked to learn the interactions.
Primarily using it on that? Because interactions can be different. There's different controls and the sizings are a little bit different.
Right.
Yeah, and Ferry, totally, like go back to our streams because I think going back to like the beginning of this project, you can see so much growth from where it was to where it is.
Definitely.
And wireframes in themselves, like as a skeleton, they do convey what the design is. But I think once you've added your design style guide that you've already developed, it looks great.
There we go. Oh, that's not scaling. Well, we can. I think it's actually better if I could move this here and keep it to scale. I like that better.
And 1 more minute until your portfolio
Ooh,
submissions.
yes.
We're gonna take a look at some stuff. So it's still open. And yeah, so like the Arbor Studio, grid systems. There are. I mean, you can activate your own guides, and you can build. You can build in grids, so you can see the gutters and all your. And depending on what type of grid you want, that is an option under the View menu. And as far as like snapping to the margins, like CSS, I mean, I agree. I think that would be a really cool tool, and I think that's something that they're looking to go into. So just stay tuned on kind of more ideas of like what you're talking about is called the box model, and being able to use some of those tools. Coming soon, but yeah, more like behaving like CSS very soon. And we have 1 second. So the deadline is up.
There we go.
So if you have not submitted maybe next time submit, but we have ended our submissions.
So some reviewing.
So yeah, we're gonna take a look at some portfolios.
And then we're going to space.
And then yeah,
Oh,
then we're gonna go to space.
nice.
We're gonna go to space first. Hello, welcome back. I don't know if you guys have noticed,
Oh wow, it's moved.
but if you put it down, you can't hear
Oh,
anything I
okay.
say.
It's very blue now.
So I do have these portfolios to review. I'm pulling up the second one as we speak. These come fast, so you gotta be ready. Okay, so we have 2 portfolios to review. You ready for this?
Let's do it.
Okay, and after this, we'll be able to kind of finish off what you were doing.
Okay.
Okay, so first one is Bohana Stuptar. You've been in the chat, very active,
Oh,
and
hello.
like I really appreciate all of your commentary throughout yesterday and today.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for being here, and we're looking at your portfolio right now. So you have a lot of projects, and this is
Wow.
amazing. Let's start with movie flicks. I feel like this is something that you might have specialized knowledge on,
Ooh, okay.
right? No? Yes?
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
I'll see. So movie flicks.
Oh, it's
I already like it.
yes.
I watch too many movies, so
Movie in
I'm
one place.
digging.
Hmm.
Also, fun fact: my very first job was at Blockbuster Video.
Really?
Yes, rest
When
in
they
peace.
still existed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are really, really cool. I
Yeah.
always love to see like your low fidelity and how they translate and what your thinking was. To include in a case study is just really fantastic. And like also your style guide. It looks very cohesive. Your fields look great. And these are the high fidelities. I see like playing with like ideas like the drop shadow. It can be really a fun way to break up the monotony of like a field entry,
Right.
right? We'll get into more of the nuts and bolts in a sec, but going overview. This project looks really, really
Yeah, it's
clean.
like super polished.
Yeah, it looks like you did spend the right amount of time because it looks great, and you really did develop the system.
I love the micro interactions too. That's important.
All right, and let's take a look at your prototype. Look at that.
Oh, whoa. Oh, I love that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
The drag animation. See that? It looks really great.
Nice. Ooh.
A lot of time triggers. It's really cool. Oh, I can't wait till XD adds video.
Oh yeah.
Once they
that's
do
it.
that, game over.
Oh, parental controls. That's smart.
Yeah. You thought about a lot.
Yeah.
Looks like someone is also like really interested in the system of like what you worked on.
yeah.
So Jessica was a intern at Hulu. So this is like a project that might have been something
Yeah.
that you know a little bit about.
Pretty similar. Yeah, I did the mobile side of the Hulu app. So
Oh, you did?
yeah.
On the
So pretty
Android-
much like
Android
very
side.
similar to this.
So what do you
Let's
think?
see. I think it looks great. I really like the attention to the different animations, especially because you're designing for a movie app and like that should be exciting. It should like reflect the content. I would say for this screen, again, what Julian said, I like the treatment of the drop shadows, but where you're supposed to type looks kind of similar to the sign up. So because the interaction when you're like clicking password, you'd be entering your password.
Right.
You'd be actively typing, so maybe changing or making the style a little bit more different, so it looks
Right.
like you can actually type in it.
I was gonna say something similar. Like, although I do like kind of playing with new ideas, like a drop shadow for form fields, I think the shape of them makes them look like buttons.
Exactly.
So if you were to make them a little bit more rectangular and less round, it actually that one change could
Definitely.
be all you need to do for that. But I like the animations leading to it too, and the way that you went back and forth. And what do you think about like this page?
Let's press play real quick. Ooh, I like the swiping animation.
Yeah, and my only feedback for that swiping animation is it looks great on the top, but I think on the navigation, you usually don't see that animate. That usually is fixed. So if you can get that bottom nav to fix so it doesn't move, that would be ideal. I know it's kind of hard to get that done sometimes when you're auto animating between artboards. But yeah, I think that's really it. And for this one, like Johnny English, go through that last step of making that lorem ipsum actual like content, because you could just copy and paste that.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's just one thing, because it's all about the illusion of it being real, right? Because like a lot of times someone sees this animation, they're gonna be like, "Is this a real thing? Can I go download this?" Right?
Right.
And the other thing is, this is like kind of just secondary, is like you could see a drop shadow from the Chrome of your phone, which isn't a huge deal breaker, but again, it kind of like does break that illusion where I know what it is. And then there's also like the shadow in here, which doesn't always happen. But otherwise, I think this project is fantastic. Really, really great work on the UX side. And there's just some small things on the visual side that need a little bit of fine tuning, but overall, fantastic. You got more stuff here, so let's take a look at some more of your projects.
I also like that theme you have. It's like pink, red. It works really great.
Yeah. What catches your eye? What do you want to look at?
Catches my eye.
I always think like the newest ones are the most.
Yeah, let's do the music one.
Yeah, they're usually like the most exciting that people have just posted. So Bahana, this is really, really great work, and everybody agrees. This is really great.
Yeah, I like the treatment you did for the fields over there. Like having it hollow. Lo-fi.
Yeah. Very, very clean, organized system.
Definitely.
You like the round buttons, I could tell.
Yes.
I do too.
I agree. Oh, user flow.
User flows.
That's
Look
great.
at that.
That's great.
You got Jess's win already.
Yeah, I'm all about user flows.
Yeah. So the similar thing with the shapes. They can start looking like this. Kind of looks like the login here. I would say just trying to like play with either just straight lines across or make those form fields rectangles. That could work great, and you won't really.
Dude, that looks like a real app.
This looks like a real app. Yeah, for sure. Like I'm already sold on this, because I'm looking for a perfect platform. Spotify's great, but it's not great in many ways, and neither is Apple Music. So let's see, creating playlists. I'm looking for specific things. So you have home, you have playlists.
Make it simple.
Make it simple.
Yep.
I would like to know what this microphone does.
It's like search by voice?
Search artist maybe.
Or it's like Shazam where you just like hold it up. It's like, what song is this?
The player, I like it. I always need to have my shuffle or unshuffle next to me. And then adding to playlist, I assume you do that here.
Right.
Right. One thing that I'm always, like, the skip is interesting, because like some people treat it like how do you rewind? But like you usually just scrub too.
Right,
so
yeah.
I think this is the normal convention, actually.
I don't think there's really much rewind. It's like usually the go forward 15 seconds, go backward 15. Like
Right.
what they have on YouTube.
Yeah.
That was pretty
And thanks for keeping this helmet on.
Oh, yeah. Dude, it's like kind of soundproof.
It's like echoing.
It's like an echo
I
chamber.
hope you can hear me. I always love these like really cool like mock-ups that you
I
do.
think it's great.
So let's see the micro interactions. Check it out. See, okay, I love the drag interaction.
Oh,
that's cool. Oh, look at that. Getting fancy on us.
It's like a record player. It's
I like it,
spinning.
yeah. Like spins like a record. Breaking the normal pattern of just a square.
I'd honestly even suggest putting this video at the very start of your portfolio. So like it draws people in. It's like, wow, this is great. Like I want to see why she thought of it and how she made it. So. And
that is a very, very personal thing that we've talked about. Like, do you put your last thing that you do on top?
Right.
Like what do you prioritize?
Definitely.
And it's a hard thing to decide on personally. I usually do put my my videos, walkthrough videos on top, but like lately I've been doing them on the bottom.
Oh, interesting.
Just got some advice, and I don't know. You bounce around. All right, so this one's really fantastic too. So in the respecting the time, I love your work. I think you have really good UX. I think if anything else, like your UX is on point.
Definitely.
Some of the visual stuff is just like really small tweaks, but like you're right there. Like keep creating these really great projects, and I think having these in your portfolio is just you're gonna be rock solid. Just keep pushing.
I agree.
Great work, Bohana. Or is it Bojana? I don't know if it's a soft J or my bad if it's not. All right, and so
I like that icon.
look at that.
It's funky.
Ivan Osadchi. Great to meet you. From Ukraine, and you are an illustrator with illustrator background too. In the house. Look at that. So UX UI designer. And let's take a. I'm just really intrigued by this.
Yeah.
By your
Can we just look at that, please?
illustrations. Like we're just gonna look at
that's
them.
Awesome. I dig it.
I dig it. It's just like
I feel it. It's like
abstract.
something in my soul is
It's
just like
angsty.
Yeah.
It's very angsty. All right, I dig it. All right, let's look at some of the UI stuff. All right, so KBC. Let's take a look.
Okay.
All right, look at that. I think it's a sport. Is it?
Maybe.
Yeah. Okay, we'll find out. We'll find out.
Oh, it's a banking app.
Banking app. Okay, I think. So I really do appreciate like your modern approach to the design. Like it looks like it could be a real app.
Definitely.
I'm not 100% sure what this is. So some clarity on like what this 32 is. I think it's a phone number maybe.
I think so.
Right. I think regionally like we have different area codes. But yeah, overall like the design like this looks like it's real.
Yeah, it's great.
Like you would be able to like have this in an app store and it looks really great. I think the drop shadows are like the weight is a little harsh.
Yeah, I agree. It's a little intense.
But that's it. Like other than that, like the design's fantastic. I think the only piece missing for this is like a little context, right? I'm not really sure like what the challenge is.
Exactly.
What you're solving is probably a really big deal. But like giving a little context, like just a little blurb of what your value is.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
What else do you think?
I think just like a presentation tweak, like where you have on the second screen, you have like, no, can you scroll up really quick? And then you have like the list of people. You see how like it bleeds over a little bit.
Oh,
like
this one?
Yeah, like cutting it off a little bit, but clean up
Yeah, like
design. But I think it looks great.
a little mask.
Yeah, a little mask.
And that's it. That way, because like again, it's all about the illusion of this being real. So if you can break anytime you can like make us feel like it is real, then that's the goal.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you have a little bit more time, I would love to see this project developed more into like a flow, like to see like what, like how these interactions work, how your micro interactions are planned out.
Yeah.
But overall, I think it's a really fantastic project. And then, so this is I'm not sure if you work for GE or this is like a contract that you had, but if you haven't, if you've been like trying to break into like the industry, I think using real brands and like creating mock products of what you think they could be doing is a really, really fantastic way to get attention.
Or even just like make their product better.
Right. Just like
great.
literally make their product better. Like if there's something about a product that you like, but there's something that bugs you, like literally fix it in a mock-up, and you could potentially get a job there.
Yeah.
Like it really can happen. So just kind of like using this like GE as a design is great. Even if you didn't work on them, like it looks like you might have though, because this looks like legit.
And I think a lot of companies have their style guides online, so it's also a great practice in learning how to use an existing style guide.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And let's see if there's a prototype.
Yeah.
Let's see. This looks like the same type of.
Oh.
Oh, there's big screens. That's cool. So I really like the cleanliness of your homepage. I think it's great. I think you can even like get this gray all take over. I think that would look really cool too. The one thing that I noticed is it does look, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. It looks a lot like a LinkedIn meets like
Like
Instagram, right?
Yeah, I feel you.
Which is totally fine. Like mashing up different designs there's nothing wrong with doing that. But yeah, this looks great. Really great work.
Yeah.
Let's do one more.
Yeah.
Bristol Myers Squibb. So it looks like you did a lot of this e-commerce or finance, fintech, which is a really bountiful place to find work.
Wow.
So doing a lot of like graphs and like you could do some cool animations with XD too. So if you wanted to
like
moving auto animate, it's really not hard either.
Yeah, I love the colors you used.
Yeah,
Like, you can very obviously like you have that sense of
you
visual
do
design.
right. You understand spacing. You understand hierarchy. Like just something like pairing these fonts together. It might seem trivial, but like a lot of people don't do that right. You know, like
100%.
the weight is like the hierarchy. I'm reading what I'm supposed to in the order that is presented. And sometimes, like if this was bold, I wouldn't have read this first.
Right.
So like your decisions of hierarchy are actually there. So really great work on just something that is very like, I think, essential for any type of visual designer.
I agree.
All right. Thank you so much for
thank
your
you.
submissions. Those were fantastic. And we would encourage the community to also check out these portfolios, follow them. Why not? Give them a follow. Comment on their work, what you feel it works well, what you think can improve, and then what also do you love. I think it's like the sandwich of feedback is what we're looking for from not only us, but from everybody out there.
Support the community.
Support the community, yeah. So go ahead and follow these fine people on Behance. That'd be really great. So we have a little bit less than, I'd say, 8 minutes.
Oh,
so
okay.
let's jump back into you.
Let's link it and show it on our phones.
Let's do it.
Yeah, okay. Let me just...
You can keep your helmet on, or you want to take it off?
Let's take it off.
Okay.
Ooh.
All right.
God, I have like helmet hair now.
So do I.
Okay. Let's see what we got. So...
Yeah, and Merry Christmas to everybody.
Oh, yes. Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.
Yes.
All of the holidays.
Stay warm, stay safe. All right. So we have a nice little product page here. I fixed this on the bottom, so therefore your menu nav bar doesn't move while you're scrolling through.
Look at that.
And let me actually just change this.
And for anybody that is interested in submitting designs for your creative challenge, please go ahead and do that. If you have created anything today for the challenge that was involving multiple interactions with your recipes for a tablet, those will be reviewed. So if you have been working on them, keep working on them, and you have time to submit those, and they'll be reviewed on Monday.
Okay, cool. So that works. That's wired up. Let me get my phone. Let's see. So the cool thing about XD is like once you download the XD app, you can take whatever design you have here and you can like send it straight to your phone. So I think that's awesome.
We're gonna plug it in a second.
Yeah, it's syncing.
So whenever you push these designs, it basically creates a link, and then if you plug it in directly, it just reads it.
Yes, exactly.
So what's really great too is if you send these to people remotely, they can also test them on their mobile devices, which is direct feedback, which is what we love.
And for me, I think it's really helpful to see like if your button sizes are correct. Because like sometimes when you're designing on your computer, you're like, that font is totally big enough, or that button's totally big enough. And then you try to like tap it with your finger and it's, no.
Yeah, and you need it in context of your actual hand, right?
Exactly.
That's like, for me, I usually always work with it like hand in hand next to me. That way you can kind of tap through, and you can also like see it live as you're designing, which is really cool.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, and for the submissions that we reviewed, Bohana, thank you for submitting and putting your work out there. I know like it's tough, you know?
Yeah.
Like putting yourself out there is not easy. Like what you're doing right here, it's not easy.
Yes. All right, so we have it up and running. So here we got the home page. So you're scrolling. It's holiday season, so you use Happy Bear 25. You get 25% off. And then we have filters like eco-friendly, cleaning bathroom, kitchen, laundry. So yeah, if you want to go to a more specific filter, you can just click up here. Takes you to cleaning. Voila.
Yeah.
And then if you click off, takes you back to general. And then here we can go look at product details. And thank you so much, Last Chat, for giving us scent suggestions. So here you can toggle between jasmine or lavender and lily flower on the side. And then once you're satisfied with your scent, you can maybe add 2 because you really like the soap.
Okay.
And then you can add it to your box. Here you can choose if you want just this order one time, or if you wanted to add it to your plan, you get it every single time you get a box. So for here, we're just gonna want it one time, and then I guess just one person in your group wants it, so you can tag it. And you just add it to your box, and voila. There you go.
Nice. And then you get the badge on top. It says
Yes,
add it to your box.
Exactly. So you get a little confirmation. Oh, that's supposed to say hand soap. It's not product name anymore.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes, because
Yes.
you got it more specific.
Mm-hmm.
And so, developing this further, where would you push this if you were to take it take it further?
Yeah, so I definitely want to make the rest of the screens high fidelity because I think that'd be really cool. And then I could string all these together. And just thinking more about like states, I think it would be really cool. One thing I wanted to experiment with, and I did a little bit building around it, but what happens when someone doesn't confirm their order or like one of the roommates doesn't pay? So just like building out the edge cases.
Yeah.
So I think one thing that's interesting about a lot of projects is we build like the happy path.
Right.
We like build it out like, okay, I know 100% our users are gonna do this. They're not gonna have any issues with the UI or issues with the service. But I think in reality, that's only like, what, 10% of
True.
what actually happens. So
Yeah.
I think going through and thinking about what happens when your product breaks or what happens
Right.
when someone doesn't use it correctly.
Those edge cases like are what's going to make your product like much more compelling and scaling to like is it something that can actually exist?
Definitely.
That's a really, really big piece of advice actually, because what happens if like there's an error? Like what are your error states? Because that's a whole nother area of states, right? And then you have your design, your style library right there.
Yeah.
Is this a project that we can expect to be on Behance soon?
Yeah, definitely.
I was talking to Jess about potentially getting the mobile version, the desktop version, web version of her page as a UI kit.
Yes.
Which is, what do you if everyone's interested in like having that as something that they could play with for patterns, for e-commerce, for service design,
Let us know.
let us know because that's something that I'm gonna help you build it out because I'm really liking some of the way that turned out, and then that way you can play with it.
You can see my design. You can fool around with it.
Yeah,
Do what you want.
design. So Jess is gonna post that soon, and then have like the whole project posted once it's completed. Yeah, but looks like you have a lot of that to
Yeah, this
do.
has been a fun project.
Yeah, but you did a lot here. So let's do a recap of everything that you did today.
Okay. So we went from this. I have a bad habit of not like saving my wireframes correctly, but we went from this low fidelity all the way to populating it with the handy Google Sheets plugin, which is so helpful. Can't
Google
stress that enough.
Sheets.
Yeah, use Google Sheets.
Yeah, it's
Save you so much time.
designing in a spreadsheet isn't always fun, but it does save you time.
Yeah. And from there, we built out some of the states about what happens when you filter something and then making that like react in real time. And then just going into the more granular level of the products and understanding like what types of user input you really need to add. So here I have them selecting the scent as well as changing the quantity. And then we made that all high fidelity. And then lastly, we went in and made what I made in the last stream using the design components. And then finally the confirmation screen. Yeah.
There you go. So that was a lot to tackle, and then yesterday you did the whole like story and told us about and designed those wireframes with us. So that was a lot of stuff that you tackled in just 2 days. So the magic of putting your head down and working. And so if you are going to stay tuned. Please do. We have a great creative challenge with Andrew, who is going to walk us through Illustrator and give us some really, really cool stuff to do. So stay tuned for that. Come back next week also. I'll be back probably hosting one of these shows, which would be really cool. And also, Sam Anderson is going to give you a new design challenge starting Monday. So be sure to check back for that. And next week we'll do some more chat and wins and give some stuff away.
All right.
Thank you so much
Yes, thanks everyone.
for being here. And thank you everybody in the chat that showed up. And have a great, great weekend.